Today, we're looking at a truly extraordinary tale that unfolded back in 1950s Las Vegas. We've got your sources detailing the almost unbelievable story of a hotel owner with, well, a staggeringly ambitious idea and the seemingly impossible aviation feat that followed.
Oh, yeah. It's a story that really makes you appreciate the audacity of some people's dreams. The sheer scale of what they attempted is just remarkable.
Absolutely. So picture this, Las Vegas, mid-1950s, the strip is starting to come alive, right? But our focus is on the Hasanda Hotel, owned by Varun Bell, who apparently went by Hasi, is the city's second largest hotel at the time. His plan was kind of to attract visitors from rural areas with affordable prices. A solid strategy, maybe, but profits were tight, and Bill was clearly searching for a way to really put the Hasanda on the map, something truly attention-grabbing.
Right. He was looking for that unique selling proposition, that spectacle that would make his hotel a talking point in what was a rapidly growing city.
Exactly. And then the catalyst, Bob Tim, an Army veteran. He had a pilot friend. This friend throws out an idea so wild it sounds, well, like fiction, breaking the world record for continuous flight. And we're not talking about beating it by a few hours or even a few days. The suggestion was months in the air. This incredible idea takes hold in Bell's mind.
Which, when you consider the aviation technology and the understanding of human endurance at the time, was a truly radical concept.
Yeah, you're so right. Here's where it gets fascinating. Back then, the ability to stay airborne for extended periods wasn't just about how much fuel a plane could hold. It had evolved really to the point where human endurance was becoming the real limitation. There were earlier milestones, of course, like those U.S. Army refueling experiments back in 1923, which showed that staying aloft longer was possible through refueling, and even a 37-hour record set by a DA-4B using multiple refuels. Then you had the Navy pilots in 1949 who flew their plane, the Sedan, for an impressive 46 days using aerial refueling.
Right, those are big steps.
But the new suggestion, months in the air, that's a completely different order of magnitude. Those earlier flights hinted at the potential, but this was aiming for something far, far beyond.
Yeah, those previous records were certainly groundbreaking, demonstrating the potential of keeping aircraft aloft indefinitely through refueling. But what was being proposed here wasn't just an extension of those records. It was like a leap into uncharted territory in terms of human tolerance and mechanical reliability over such a prolonged period.
Okay, let's dive into the core of this mission then. Bell, quite understandably, saw this as the ultimate publicity stunt for the Hasanda Hotel. I mean, imagine the headlines. A plane with his hotel's name, or rather his nickname, Hasi Egg, emblazoned on it, staying airborne for what they hoped would be a record-shattering duration.
Yeah, huge publicity.
So he enlists Bob Tim, this experienced World War II pilot, figuring he had the skills and maybe the daring for such an endeavor.
And Tim, who must have possessed a real pioneering spirit, or perhaps saw this as a unique opportunity to achieve something extraordinary himself, agreed to take on this incredible challenge. It's a compelling mix, isn't it? A businessman's marketing ambition and a pilot's drive to push the boundaries of flight.
Exactly. So Tim goes out and purchases a Cessna 172, a very common light aircraft, really, not designed for months of continuous operation.
Not at all.
The next crucial step was some serious modifications. He hires a mechanic, and they essentially dismantle and rebuild parts of this Cessna to transform it into a flying endurance machine.
They really had to rethink the fundamental design and capabilities of this aircraft. It's actually a testament to their ingenuity that they could adapt a standard plane for such an extreme purpose.
You got it. The first major change was the removal of the co-pilot seat. In its place, just a simple foam sleeping pad, not exactly luxurious accommodations for what was going to be an unbelievably long and arduous flight, right?
Definitely not. Very basic.
They also completely removed the back row of seats to create a storage area of about 8 square feet. Think about that. All the supplies needed for months in the air crammed into that tiny space. It really highlights the Spartan conditions they would have endured.
Absolutely. Every ounce and every cubic inch would have been meticulously considered. Just imagining the logistics of storing enough food, water, and other necessities for that length of time in such a confined space is, well, it's quite sobering.
And speaking of living for months in a small plane, hygiene becomes a significant challenge. So they installed a very small sink. I mean, truly tiny for sponge baths. Just try to picture maintaining any semblance of cleanliness in that cramped, constantly moving environment for over 2 months.
It underscores just how basic their living conditions were. Things we take for granted, like a proper shower, would have been completely out of the question. A quick sponge bath would have been a rare and probably very welcome luxury.
Then comes the truly pivotal modification. They added a massive 95-gallon auxiliary fuel tank to the belly of the Cessna. This was in addition to the fuel already carried in the plane's wings.
Right, the main tanks.
This significantly increased fuel capacity was, of course, essential for extending their flight duration between refueling stops. To put that in perspective, a standard 1950s Cessna 172 had a fuel capacity of around, 36 gallons? Giving it a flight time of roughly 4 to 5 hours. This 95-gallon addition more than tripled their potential endurance between refuels.
That additional fuel tank was the absolute linchpin of their plan. Without that extended range, the frequent aerial refuelings would have been even more critical and complex. It truly transformed the operational capability of the aircraft.
But the question then becomes, how do you refuel a small plane in midair, day after day, for months on end? Well, they devised this incredibly complex and, frankly, terrifying procedure. They installed a winch in a small folding platform that extended out from where the co-pilot door used to be. Imagine the co-pilot having to stand on this tiny platform, essentially hanging outside the aircraft, to manage the refueling connection.
The inherent risk in that setup is just staggering. I mean, the co-pilot would be exposed to the elements, the slipstream, the constant motion of the aircraft, all while handling a fuel line. The potential for a catastrophic accident during each refueling was incredibly high.
Absolutely. And to make sure everyone knew who was behind this audacious endeavor, Bell had Hossie Egg painted in enormous letters right on the side of the plane. It was a flying billboard of ambition.
It's a constant reminder that while this was a remarkable feat of aviation and endurance, it was also fundamentally a marketing strategy, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure. Okay, so let's really get into this refueling process. It sounds like something out of an action movie, but it was their routine, potentially repeated over 100 times during their planned 50-day flight. They would coordinate with a refueling truck to meet at a prearranged location, often on those long, isolated desert roads. The truck would then have to drive at top speed around 60 miles per hour, maybe 100 kilometers per hour, while the Cessna flew at its absolute minimum controllable airspeed, just about 20 feet above the moving truck.
The level of coordination and precision required between the pilot in the air and the driver on the ground is almost unimaginable. Any slight error in speed or altitude could have had disastrous consequences for both the plane and the truck. It's terrifying to think about.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Then the co-pilot would lower the winch down to the truck. The ground crew would attach a fuel pipe to the end of the winch cable, and they would then winch it back up to the aircraft.
Right.
The co-pilot, precariously positioned on that small platform outside the plane, would then have to connect the fuel pipe to the belly tank. They would refuel for approximately 3 minutes, and then the entire process would be reversed. For their initial goal of a 50-day flight, they estimated needing to perform this dangerous maneuver over 100 times.
The sheer repetition of this high-risk operation, coupled with the physical strain on the co-pilot, and the constant potential for something to go wrong due to mechanical failure or human error, it really underscores the incredible challenges they faced. And all of this happening in potentially turbulent air adds another layer of complexity, too.
You can just imagine the cumulative fatigue setting in after weeks of these nerve-wracking refuels. Now, they didn't perfect this on their first try either. Initial test flights in the summer of 1958 were riddled with problems and setbacks. And it seems the original co-pilot and Tim had significant disagreements. Things deteriorated to the point where that co-pilot was ultimately fired.
Well, that highlights the intense pressure and confined environment they were operating under. In such a high-stakes situation, the interpersonal dynamics between the crew members would be absolutely critical. A lack of trust or compatibility could quickly jeopardize the entire mission.
Exactly. So a new co-pilot, John Cook, came on board. And finally, on December 4th, 1958, their ambitious record attempt officially began. To guard against any secret landings that might invalidate a potential record, officials from the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, the FAI, the world governing body for air sports, they were present to observe the takeoff.
Right, the official observers.
In fact, immediately after taking off, Tim and Cook circled back and briefly touched down again so a chase car could inspect the plane's tires. The tires had been painted with a special white paint. The idea was that any clandestine landing on an unpaved surface would scrape off the paint, thus revealing a breach of the rules. Talk about a thorough verification process.
It really speaks to the magnitude and novelty of their undertaking. The FAI needed to ensure the integrity of any record claimed under such unusual circumstances. That tire inspection was a clear indication of the skepticism maybe, and the need for irrefutable proof.
So they're finally airborne, embarking on this unprecedented journey. And let's be honest, living in that cramped Cessna for weeks on end sounds absolutely grueling. To maximize their fuel efficiency, they often flew at high altitudes over the desolate plains of California, which meant bitterly cold temperatures inside the poorly insulated cabin. Remember, this was during December and January.
Yeah, the lack of proper insulation in a small aircraft at high altitude during winter would have made the cold a pervasive and relentless challenge. Maintaining focus and alertness in those conditions for such an extended period would have been incredibly difficult.
They tried to alleviate the monotony by reading, performing basic exercises in their limited space, and simply talking to each other. But you can only imagine the sheer boredom, the constant vibration and drone of the engine.
Mm-hmm. Endless hours.
Thankfully, those twice-daily refueling rendezvous weren't solely for fuel. They also used the winch to bring up vital supplies, fresh water, engine oil, and even prepared meals sent up from the Hasanda Hotel's kitchen. Can you picture getting a hot meal winched up to your tiny airplane hundreds of feet above the desert floor?
It's a truly surreal image, isn't it? That lifeline descending from the sky, providing not just essential supplies, but also a momentary, tangible connection to the world they had left behind. It must have been a real morale booster, I think.
And then there's the less glamorous but absolutely necessary aspect of daily life, sanitation. They had a folding camp toilet seat and used waste bags. And apparently, these bags, once used, well, you can imagine, were sometimes just jettisoned over those remote areas. Not exactly an environmentally sound practice, but a necessary if unappealing reality of their situation.
It's a stark and, yeah, somewhat humorous reminder of the unglamorous realities of attempting such an extreme feat. It highlights the ingenuity required to address even the most basic human needs within the confines of a small airplane.
It wasn't a smooth ride by any stretch of the imagination, though. They faced several incredibly dangerous situations and significant equipment failures. On one terrifying occasion, the co-pilot actually fell asleep at the controls, and Tim woke up just in the nick of time to prevent a catastrophic crash into a canyon. Can you imagine the sheer panic of that moment?
Wow. That incident underscores the immense physical and mental toll the constant flying and sleep deprivation would have taken on them.
Yeah.
A momentary lapse in vigilance could have had fatal consequences, highlighting the extreme risks they were undertaking. Just incredible.
Then, on day 39, a major crisis. The plane's generator failed. This had a cascading effect, knocking out their radio, their lights, their heater, and critically, the electric fuel pump that transferred fuel from that large belly tank to the main engine.
Oh no. That generator failure would have created a whole series of critical challenges, significantly compromising their safety and their ability to continue the flight. The loss of the electric fuel pump meant a massive increase in their workload and the introduction of a new, physically demanding task.
Exactly. For the remainder of their flight, they had to manually pump the fuel. And nighttime refuels, already incredibly perilous, became even more so without any lights on the plane. A resourceful solution. They ingeniously tied a flashlight to the winch cable so the ground crew could see where to connect the fuel pipe. Talk about problem solving under immense pressure.
It's a remarkable example of their adaptability and determination to keep going despite these significant technical setbacks. They were constantly having to improvise and find solutions to unforeseen problems. Really impressive.
They also encountered issues with their fuel gauge and tachometer malfunctioning and even experienced engine trouble due to carbon buildup. It sounds like they were constantly battling one mechanical issue after another, which is a testament to the incredible strain they were putting on that little Cessna.
It really underscores the fact that they were pushing this aircraft far, far beyond its intended operational limits for such an extended period. The constant vibrations, temperature fluctuations, and prolonged engine use would inevitably lead to wear and tear and mechanical failures.
As they approached the existing 50-day continuous flight record, Bell really amplified the publicity efforts. He made plans for the Hassi egg to fly over major cities, alerted newspapers across the country, and even chartered an airplane full of photographers to capture the historic moment.
Going all out.
There's this iconic photograph of co-pilot Cook actually climbing out onto that small platform mid-flight to clean the windscreen. That image became widely circulated, capturing the nation's imagination.
That photograph is so striking. It perfectly embodies the audacity and the commitment to the spectacle of the entire endeavor. It provided a very visual and compelling representation of their ongoing flight and the dedication of the crew.
And on January 23, 1959, after an astounding 50 days in the air, they officially broke the existing world record. But incredibly, Tim and Cook decided to continue flying. They weren't done yet.
Wow. Having achieved their initial goal, and with the world watching their every move, they saw an opportunity to push the boundaries even further and establish a truly monumental record, I guess.
Finally, on February 7th, 1959, after an unbelievable 64 days, 22 hours, 19 minutes, and 5 seconds, the Haasi egg finally touched down. The press and public turnout was enormous. Officials confirmed that the white paint on the tires was still intact, providing definitive proof that they had not made any secret landings. The two pilots were understandably completely and utterly exhausted.
64 days of that kind of relentless existence would take an immeasurable toll on both their physical and mental well-being. The sheer endurance they displayed is truly, truly awe-inspiring.
What's a fascinating footnote to this story is that the FAI actually stopped recognizing piloted endurance records back in 2015 due to safety concerns.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that means Tim and Cook's incredible achievement, that 1959 flight, now stands as a permanent, unbreakable record. And the very Cessna 172 that made it all possible, the Haasi egg, is now on display, hanging in the baggage claim area of McCarran International Airport Terminal 1 in Las Vegas. Talk about a tangible piece of aviation history greeting visitors to the city where it all began.
That's amazing. It serves as a powerful and very visible reminder of this extraordinary feat of human and mechanical endurance right there in the airport where countless journeys begin and end.
So let's just take a moment to really consider this. The sheer audacity of the initial idea, the incredible physical and mental endurance demonstrated by Bob Tim and John Cook, and the remarkable mechanical ingenuity required to modify that Cessna and keep it flying continuously for over 2 months. It's truly mind-boggling. What started as a seemingly outlandish publicity stunt in Las Vegas became a lasting and significant chapter in the history of aviation.
It really highlights the power of human determination and creative problem solving. They were faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and yet through their ingenuity and perseverance, they managed to achieve something truly extraordinary and redefine what was thought possible in aviation endurance.
And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What other seemingly impossible feats might be within our reach if we approach them with that same level of unwavering determination and innovative thinking, even when faced with significant risks? Perhaps that fundamental human drive to push beyond perceived limitations, even to extremes, is a core part of our nature.
It certainly prompts reflection on where the true boundaries of human and technological capability lie. This story serves as a powerful example of what can be achieved when ambition meets ingenuity and resilience, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Just incredible stuff.